I hope this works. We'll see if we're live in just a second. I'm not sure if we're live or not. It still says offline. Oh no, there we go. I think we're live. Yep. Let me just send out the tweet so that people are tuning in.
Cool.
Oh fuck! I forgot to rename the stream. I'm such a dork. I forgot to change the title of the stream. Okay, titles are updated. We're ready to go. All right, welcome everybody to this live chat. I'm very excited to be here today with Pedro. Pedro, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Cool. So yeah, hey everyone. My name is Pedro. I'm a UI dev. I'm currently working at Modulz as product engineer slash some extra stuff that we do in early stage startups. Originally, I'm from Brazil, but I grew up in London, where I lived there most of my life. And now I'm living here in Barcelona with my girlfriend and our daughter.
Nice. That's awesome. How long have you been at Modulz?
I've been working at Modulz for about a year and a month. So I started March last year.
Nice.
That's when Modulz did the first round of hiring. So yeah, basically me and got another colleague there, Abdul. He and myself were the first hires, but team has grown since then. So
how big are you now?
And I think now we are eight of us, if I remember correctly, and we've got two more starting in a few weeks. So in a couple of weeks, so that's really good.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. So what are you working on? What does Modulz do?
Well, Modulz is it's a tool optimized for building, maintaining, designing, publishing design systems. It's at the moment it's quite optimized for design systems, so it's built with design system concerns. But it's some people call it a visual code editor, part of the no code environment, you know. But essentially, it's a place where designers can go in. They can start thinking about their design system from being within the actual medium that design system will be used, in which case being the web, the browser. So the idea is that this will improve collaboration between designers and developers. It will help close that gap that currently exists, and there are many other tools trying to improve the handoff at the moment. And Modulz is our take on it. We believe that as design systems gain more and more popularity, that as they have been in the last couple of years, more people will want to build on top of a system rather than draw pictures on a canvas and then have a developer translate that into code. So in a nutshell, it's a design system manager. You can design, you can maintain, you can deploy, you can integrate with other tools. We're working on converting the design system into drawing tools rather than the other way around. So we can convert what you do into a sketch, and then the rest of the design team can get a sketch library where if they need to do some quick mock-ups, they can actually do the mock-ups using the system. It's all around design systems. It's all around improving that collaboration between designers and developers. It's about having a better consistency in your products since everything is built on top of the same system. It's about creating documentation for your design system. So if anyone wants to use it, there's a place where they can go and look at the components, look at the variants, look at the theme, and that type of stuff.
Right. That sounds very exciting. Now, I hear that today we're going to get the very first demo ever of Modulz in the public. Is that right?
We've done one demo before, which was in a private meetup. There might be some people here listening that were there. But apart from that, yes, I think that's the first ever public demo.
That's super exciting. Why don't you walk us through what it looks like and how it works?
Okay, cool. Let's hope it goes well.
I hope you sacrifice the lamb to the demo gods. No, it'll be fine.
All right.
It's not like that many people.
So I'll share my screen. All right. So I guess you should be able to see my screen now. I've basically got an empty canvas here because I'm creating something for the first time from scratch. There's nothing here apart from my name. This is because I'm logged in as myself. So right now, what we're looking at is what we call the design system dashboard. This is where you would see your design system or your design systems if you have more than one. So in this demo, what I'm going to do is we're going to create a design system. We're going to give it a name. We are going to have a look at the tokens. Maybe we can customize some of the tokens. We are going to apply these tokens to components. So that's where the styling comes in. We are going to create some variants for some components. So you may have different types of buttons. You may have different sizes of text. Following that, we are going to publish this design system to NPM as a library, as a package. And to finalize, we are going to use Code Sandbox to install this design system that we just created. And we're just going to build something with it.
Nice.
So without further ado, we create a new design system. You're taken to a quick setup page. This is a guide that we provide. It's a little bit part of an onboarding experience. So if you go through this, you kind of get most of the things, everything you need to do, basically the basic stuff here will get done. But what we're going to do is we're just going to start by giving it a name. And don't know, actually, what should we call it? Let me think.
The live design system.
All right, let's call it. Let's call it Max Show. Let's just call it Max Show.
Nice, I like that.
That's a weird name. That's a weird name, isn't it? Should have
thought
about a name. All right, so we got a name. One thing to note here is that we auto-generate style guides for you. So by default, you get this style guide. This is the URL, and you can change it here. So what we're going to do is we start by going to our component screen. These are all the components that are currently available for you to choose from. We can go into the editor. And what you see here is on the left, we've got a list of tokens. These tokens they follow the system UI theme specification.
Nice.
So you've got your colors, you got your typefaces. Some of the names we've changed how they're named in the system UI object and in the UI of modules, just so they may be more familiar for designers. So here we've got typefaces instead of fonts. You've got type scale instead of font sizes. You get the idea. Line height, size, space, radii, opacity.
All right, let me throw the first challenge at you. Somebody in the chat asked if you can make the text bigger. Does the UI scale? Can you press Command Plus and make everything bigger?
Well, you should be able to do that.
Nice.
It works pretty well on touch device as well.
Nice, that's awesome. So it's fully responsive as well.
No, it's not responsive yet because we're not anticipating that people will be using this on mobile devices. So if you're using it on an iPad, it works fine. and if you're using on a 11-inch MacBook, works fine. So it's not something we prioritize.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Go on then.
All right. So shall I go back to the initial
No,
scale,
keep
or
it, keep
when
it,
it's
keep it
asking?
big. People have
Yeah.
asked me to make it
Okay.
bigger, so
Okay. Fair enough. We do it like this. Cool. So we got it. So you can go into your tokens and you can start changing them. You got all your colors here. Um, you can use the color picker to change stuff. In typefaces, you can upload your custom fonts, but we also give you a bunch of Google fonts that are ready to use. So you can just
nice.
pick some from here. Mono fonts if you want to use to create different type of fonts, script, mono, sans serif, serif, whatever you feel like you need to do.
That
You
actually
got your
leads me
type
to a
scale.
first technical question. If I choose a custom font from Google Fonts, is there like a loader or something included in the generated design system that I can use to load the font in my app?
No, and that's a good question. We don't do that in the design system. So we kind of leave it up to you to take the Google's import script and put it there yourself. So what you would get is the right declaration at the right components.
Yeah, right. Makes
And
sense.
and it's interesting to say that because I was literally talking to a colleague a couple of days ago about this, and I don't know, all of these are still up for questions or ideas. So if anyone in the chat has any idea, if you have any idea and you think you'd prefer the things were worked by default, then fine, let us know. It's something we are considering.
Nice.
But good question, because I just noticed that 2 days ago.
Nice. All right, keep going.
So anyway, this is the theme. This is an introduction to the theme. The theme that you get is a theme that it's kind of like the classic scales, usually like 4, 8, 12, 16, 24. So we can stick with this, but if we can create new colors. We could go here, create purple, and set a purple color.
Nice.
Cool. So then the next thing that you do is you can start customizing your components. I'm going to start with a button because I feel like button is usually one of the trickiest ones to do because it has not just styles on a normal state, but it also has hover, it has active, it has focused, and usually buttons have quite a few variants. So I think if we stick with the button, we should be able to demo everything pretty well. So what you see here on the far right is the properties panel. This is where you can start applying your tokens to the component that you're looking at. By default, we're looking at a base version. This is the equivalent of you rendering a button without passing any variants. And what we can do now is we can literally start applying our tokens onto our buttons. So by default, it's using 32, and 32 is one of our size tokens, as you see here. It has some radius, so if we want to make it a little bit more rounded, we can. In case you wanted to change the radius individually, you can do that in this extra panel here. You can customize your padding left, padding right. You can change the color of your text if you want your text to be blue. If you don't want to use one of your color scales, you can unlink and you can pick any color you want, or you can go back to your tokens and select your token, which is what we advise. But there's always a way that you may want a color that's not in your scale. So this type of scape hatches are something that we think a lot about.
So
you can
that
change the font
actually
sizes.
makes me wonder, because you say unlink, the theme values and the tokens and these values are synced, right? So if you were to edit a step on a scale or a hex value of a color on the left side, it would also change the way all components look automatically, right?
Yes,
Very
that's
nice.
correct. So we can do a test with the padding where here we have 12 and 12. We can change the space scale from 12 to 10. So this now changed to 10, and the padding left and right now changed to 10.
Very nice.
If we change that back to 12, then everything updates back to 12. So this is one of the benefits of using a GUI sometimes. It's the type of stuff that we can automate so much of the work. So that's really nice for maintenance. Another thing that if you were to delete this, what happens is we tell you these are the components that are currently relying on this value. So what happens is if you delete this token, we unlink it for you. So the values will remain the same, but they're going to be used as custom values rather than a token value.
That's very neat.
Yeah. Also with this, the same way you can come out of a token in the color property, you can do the same for every property. So in padding, you'd go custom value. And then here, if you want to go 13, you can go 13.
Yeah.
At this point, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can use your arrow keys, shift up, shift down, the normal experience that designers are used to and developers are used to. Cool. So yeah, I don't need to go through every single property because they're very self-explanatory. We get the idea. We can change the text transform. We can remove it, change the background color and all that stuff. Additionally, there's some extra properties for transitions and filters and transforms, which we can do actually as a demo. But first, I'll show you the states. So first, let's look at the hover states. By default, there are no states. There's no styling in the states. So that means when I go into interactive mode and I hover my button, nothing happens. So if we wanted to add a hover state, we select the hover state from the parts panel and we change the background color to a darker gray 400. We switch on interactive mode. And from this moment on, you can hover and you'd see what you're actually doing. So this comes back to what I was saying earlier about designing in the medium. The same for active states. So active would be when the mouse is pressed, essentially. So here we could go a tad darker even. Now if we go interactive, we can hover, and when we click, it goes a bit darker.
Beautiful.
You've got focus states, which is the reason we put all the states in is because this is one of the key differences between using being in the right medium and drawing. When you're drawing a button, it's very likely that you may forget some states. And because nothing happens when you hover, nothing happens when you tab, there's no focus, there's no active. So by being here, it allows you to see all the states and hopefully remind people, hey, there's a focus state, which is good for accessibility. Make it look good. So for the focus state, say we want to add some shadow. We can use the shadow panel. We can say, let's put a shadow of blue. This is our blue from our token. Let's do 0 blur and 2 spread. And so now we have hover, we have active. When we press down, the gray gets darker, and you get the focus, which is also appears when you press down. So these are all the states. And then additionally, there's a disabled button. This is where you may want to go. Actually, I'm going to change the color of my text, make it look a little bit lighter. Maybe make it accessible, contrast. And that's how you'd look if it was disabled. So that's how we style parts and states.
I like this a lot because I think very often when you work with designers, they'll give you a mock-up of maybe a bigger component, right? They'd be like, okay, here's your whatever sidebar, but they only really show the sidebar in 1 or maybe 2, or even if they show it in 3 states, that's that's a lot already, right? But many components actually have way more states than that, just based on interaction. So I love that you exposed that here. And the other thing I noticed is that you did the focus state, you did that with a shadow instead of a border, which shows how great of a UI engineer you are, because that doesn't move the button around, which is actually huge.
Exactly.
And you have to spend a lot of time building buttons and their states to realize that difference.
There's only so many times you can make the same mistake, right?
I wish. All right, let's keep going here.
So another thing I want to show actually, how, right now everything is quite harsh, right? Like when you hover, the color changes, but there's no transition. When you're active and when you go into focus mode, there's no transition. So it's okay, actually, it's not a bad thing. But if you wanted to add some transition, you could click on the transition group. We add one. We can choose what to transform. For the sake of this example, let's transform everything. Let's change this to 333 because I like 333. And if we go into interactive mode, now you can see how there's already a transition happening on hover. And when you click also.
Beautiful.
So it's quite simple. We're trying to make it as simple as we can for designers to start being in control of some of these interactions, because at the end of the day, what's one of the most powerful features of Modulz is that what used to be the responsibility of many engineers, whether they are UI engineers or backend or full stack or what have you, it was their responsibility to translate whatever was drawn into something that's usable.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're basically saying to designers, this is now your responsibility to make it look good. You can even be responsible for animations, interactions, and whatever you do is what you're going to get in the live product. So that's how we add transitions.
Love it.
Next, we have variants, and variants work in a very similar fashion as they do in Style System, Theme UI. There's some differences, but from a concept is exactly the same. So you can create a variant. You can name this whatever you want. You can name this color. For the sake of this is called variant. And every variant will be, it's inherits whatever is in the base, right? So for the blue, you see, like when I hover and when I click on blue, I'm getting those styles that come from the base states because they haven't set my hover and my active and my press in the blue variants. So for us to do that, what we'll do is we follow the exact same process. We select hover, and then here we click blue. I don't have a darker version of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a blue 500. Actually, I'm going to do it in a different way. I'm going to duplicate this one.
Nice.
And code this blue 500. So I have a good starting point. And then I can go to HSLA and I can darken by 10 points. From here onwards, I can pick my darker blue. And when I hover, we get the darker blue.
Beautiful.
We can, now that we've got a scale going on, we can edit this and say that the normal blue becomes 400. 400 is usually our middle point. Then for active, the same. We can say even, let's duplicate this and say blue 600, darken by 10 points again. And when it's active, we can go blue 600. And finally, when it's focused, we want to change the shadow and we want to use the blue 500 or 600, I don't know. But as you see here, let me change this to a lighter one. Blue 400, there you go. So now when we hover the blue variant, we get a darker blue. When we press, we get an even darker blue. And when it's focused, you get an actual blue shadow.
Nice.
And to do that for green and for red and yellow, you'd follow the same steps. But it's all about, this is all about configuring. What you're doing is you're thinking about your tokens, you're thinking about your states, and you're thinking about which styles you want to apply at a given state. Essentially, you're coding. You're actually writing CSS, via UI. Yeah, and that's right. Why a lot of people call these tools visual code editors.
I actually really
so
like
that's
this.
The color variants.
It's sort of like picking up designers and nudging them to even apart from the fact that it writes code on the hood, which is a really cool benefit. Even just as a design tool, this is nudging designers in the direction of working with developers, right? In giving them
Definitely.
exactly what they need, even if it didn't export code, which again one of the big benefits. But even if it didn't export code, just as a design tool, this is already very interesting because it's giving designers tools and nudges them towards doing the right thing by default, which is awesome. Also, I love how many great sort of front end development design tips were in that short snippet because, first of all, the shadow for the active state, really important. Most people do that wrong, or many people do that wrong. I know I did for a long time. And then the other thing is how you did the color scale is really nice. You went to HSLA and then you edited the lightness of the colors, which is a really quick and easy way to create a pretty nice looking color palette out of a single base color. I love that. Anyways, let's keep going.
Yeah. Well, that's good they spotted that. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with HSL, but we use HSL for our colors in Radix. And by the way, um, Radix is our design system. So everything you see here in the Modulz UI is built with Radix, and Radix is entirely built with um, with the same components that Modulz uses. So we're really one little step away from building modules with Modulz. That's
Nice.
the next step in our milestones. But that's HSLA is great because it's a really nice way to create curves of your colors. So you can have the exact same curve of your greens, and you can, as we can for your blues and your reds, just by changing the lightness throughout, and you keep the hues the same. Um, so yeah, it's great to use that. I really like it. I know it took me a long time to kind of understand and get used to using it, but now that I do, I use it all the time.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Cool. So next up, we've got size. Now, this is when things start getting really, really interesting slash powerful slash perhaps a little bit complicated for designers because they're not really thinking about this way of thinking from coming from drawing tools. Unless, of course, you're a designer that has experience building variants and building compound states out of your combination of variants. But what happens here is, as we said earlier, this is going to get translated to React props, right? So you're going to have a prop called variant, and your possible values will be blue, green, red, and yellow. But you also get a prop called size, and the value that you can add to size is large. Here we can create another one, and we can say extra large. But then you can combine them together. So you can have a large blue button. So this is when things get quite powerful. So at this point, you need to start thinking about the combination of variants. So for now, we've done our blue, we've got our base, we've got our blue, and we've got our large. And it's funny how everything transitions because it's real when you change styles.
Nice.
And in the large, what we have done here is we increase the font size, we increase the height, and that's it. So I think for the sake of the demo, this is pretty good. When we get into using this component, I'll do the compound state so we can see how that looks. Another thing that you see in modules, whenever you see this little blue dot, it means that you've overridden that property from your base.
Nice.
So if you click here, it's going to reset that to your default state. So that's a nice way to kind of say, actually, I don't want to override this anymore. Cool. So button is, I think we've covered pretty much everything you can do on a button. And then there's a bunch of components that you can use. You got things like checkbox that you can customize. You can customize the icon. At the moment, you can't change the SVG itself, but that's something we're working on. You're going to be able to import your own SVG library or integrate with feather icons or bite-size icons and any other SVG icon library that you want. We've got things like code. Some things require a little bit more interactivity. So if we look at a dialogue, for example, a dialogue here is, we're showing you how a dialogue is open. And a dialogue has two parts. It has the content, which is this white part where your content will go. And it has the overlay itself, the bit that's behind. Currently, as I'm sure you probably noticed by now, this looks a bit empty. We are working on being able to allow people to compose examples. So when they style it, they style with more context. For now, it's not something you can do yet, but we're working towards that. Then you get even more complex ones, like, let's say, I was gonna avoid the select because this is a big one, but we're here now, so let's just do it.
Nice.
So the select component is a component that I am sure many developers have struggled with in the past.
Yes.
It's very often that when you get a mock-up from Sketch or Figma or name your favorite drawing tool, you're gonna get a custom select. And I don't mean just the face of the select, I mean the actual options as well. And what happens is we get this design and we're like, look, we've got to ship this product in like 4 weeks' time. We can't build a custom select because just the custom select may take about 3 months to do it properly. And if you want to do it accessible and all this. And I 3 months because it took us about 3 months with 2 developers working on this to try and make the absolute best select that we can. So I think this deserves a little bit of a demo. So
nice.
So the
I love
select
it.
is a normal select, but the difference is you can customize the options. Now, as components start getting a little bit more complex, you start realizing that the parts panel also get a little bit bigger. And this is because we need to allow designers to select each part and customize them. So the way a select works is if you go in interactive mode, when you open it, you get a list of selects. Whatever option is selected here is going to appear on top. So if I select option 4, actually I might just going to add some styling just so we can see what we're highlighting. Let's say 1800. Right.
Nice.
So if I select, say, option 5, it's just something that's quite in the middle here, right? If I select option 5 is now selected. But when you open it again, you see the option 5 is placed where the select is. And this is how native selects work. Well, I can't take credit for this one. But there's been a lot of effort invested in this from a engineering perspective. Benoit, one of our developers, works on this a lot. He definitely got some gray hairs after working on this one. Colum, our CEO, also spent a long time specking this. Steven, Abdul, Vlad, the whole team spent ages just trying to get this one right. It was a big team effort.
Nice.
Because it has so many states and it has so many complexities.
Yeah. I see Benoit in the chat. So if you're watching, give Benoit a shout. Tell him that he's done a great job because this select component is amazing.
Exactly. Absolutely. So so that's one of the things. But also you can use your keys up and down. And what you notice here, you're probably thinking, but why is 4 being skipped? Well, that's because 4 is a disabled item, but we haven't styled a disabled item, so it just doesn't look like it. So if we go disabled and we just change the color to gray, we're working on, by the way, when you change a specific state to only affect that given state. This is work in progress. But what you can see now is that option 4 looks disabled. So when you go up and down, this makes a little bit more sense.
Nice.
So you can do that. Another thing you can do is you can also start typing the same way you can on a normal native select. So if you type option 4, well, that's one is disabled, but option 5, it moves there. If I type option 1, it moves to option 1. And if you press enter, it selects. And from here, you can directly press arrow down. And if you press arrow down, it will also open. Or you can start typing option 3 directly from there, and that also works. So in terms of functionality with the native select, it's pretty much one-to-one. And that's really good. There's a few things that you can't do with this because native selects are actually able to come out of the window. So if you open a really large native select in your browser, it could be open like this.
Yeah, right.
And come out of the window frame, whereas something we can't do. This is one of our limitations. But if we get around to styling this, Say we want to make these items the same height as the button. We know that the button has a height of 32, so we can go here and say 32. And now you see that when this is interactive, it's perfectly positioned.
Oh man.
Exactly in the same place.
Sid,
So,
Sid, who I've
again,
already had on the live chat recently, commented in the chat, "Shut up and take my money already." And then he said, "Wait, don't shut up, but also take my money already." I don't even know why you're building a product. You should just be selling this select component. This is amazing.
The select component is a big one, and we have many more that are nearly as complex as select components. And later, once we export this library, or I'll just show you radix instead, this is all using the select component. The whole of Modulz uses that everywhere.
Nice.
So this is a good demo. You see here, you got this little arrow at the top. This is what we call the scroll indicator. So that's what you see in this part here.
Yeah.
So when you select scroll indicator, we change that, and you can see the scroll indicator. If you wanted to change the color, you want to make it blue, you can change that to blue. Change the background to light gray, you can do that. So this is the scroll indicator, and this is how radix ones look. But you see, it gets used everywhere.
There was a good question in the chat. Is this mobile ready? This select component?
Yeah. Well, it would work with mobile. We have tested it a lot, but we recommend that on mobile you use the native one. So the way this component works is it receives a prop called, I think it's called force native. And what happens is if you use that prop force native, you're going to get the exact same look that you did for the button and the icon. But when you open it, you get the native select.
Right.
So
Benoit is saying in a chat that the prop is native, not force native, but that's a small point. Doesn't really matter.
That's it. Exactly. So if we look at the docs, which will get generated for you, I don't know if we've fully documented this at the moment, but this is a live playground. So here, this is the radix one. And if we go is native, then you get the native one. But the button looks exactly the same.
Yeah, right. I see.
So that's quite nice. Yeah, it's like basically we're doing what developers used to do, plus now what designers want to do.
Nice. So in a way, you sort of give everybody a base set of components that are really well built, and it's just up to designers to style them and make them look nice. And then in developers' apps, they then use this sort of design system that they build really on top of your base one, if I understand that correctly.
100% correct. And I think what we call this library of components here that you see underneath, we call them primitives. Mm-hmm. These are the primitives that we build. There's a team in Modulz, which is the team that focuses on building these primitives standalone. And then there's Modulz, the product itself, which is a UI that uses these primitives and adds all of the logic of theming and states, and then applies the right style on the right component. But these primitives, they're not exactly the same as a theme UI primitive. A theme UI primitive is something that you get styled through the SX prop. Whereas the primitives that we built in order to maintain, in order to be able to style all of the states, whether the states are a CSS state like hover, or whether it's a JavaScript derived state like highlighted, it works. So we have a basically strict styling API that Modulz can communicate with this primitives library, and that's how everything comes together.
So is this primitives library open source? Can I use this even if I'm not using Modulz?
No, it's not open source. It's something that we're talking about. One of the main reasons is just that it's heavily work in progress. It's just not ready to. There's so much going on, and things are changing so fast that it's not ready to even receive feedback just yet. But we are considering whether to open source it or not. It's in a way it's a massive bonus of using Modulz is having access to this library. So there's a few things we need to consider, but you can technically use it, but you can't really look at how things were built. Like you can't get the code for the select.
Yeah, right. So if I'm in the end, when I publish my own design system to npm, how does it sort of import the select component? Where does that come from?
Primitives lives on npm, so that's why I said you can use the library, you can install the
Yeah, right.
primitives
I
from
see.
npm, and you're going to get access to an unstyled version of all of these primitives.
Yeah, right.
And you can
Fair
style
enough.
them, but then you have to hand code everything Modulz does. You have to do it by hand. It's not really an API that is very user friendly by hand.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. That's
I
totally
can show a
fair.
demo later as well if you want.
Sure.
But we're considering this. There's definitely a lot of benefits of open source in this, so it's something we are considering. What I was gonna say, I was gonna show something next. But essentially, this library of primitives, the closest thing that I would compare it to is ReachUI or
Mm-hmm.
React from.
Mm-hmm.
So you got ReachUI from Ryan Florence, you got React from Diego Has. These are two great libraries. There are more. There's Chakra UI, which is also great. Um, it's another option. Under the hood, the primitives are built using system UI conventions. It relies on a styled system core package. It doesn't use the styled system props directly. It uses something else that's built on top of styled system core. But the API that you get out of this is very much compatible with styled system and with theme UI. So it does support the SX prop as well, which is actually the next thing we're going to do. So if there are more developers watching this Max show, that's going to get more interesting. So let's say we finished styling our components, right? We're happy with how things look, and now we want to publish it. So the next step is you go to integrations and you connect your design system with npm. So here, I don't know, man. Let's continue with the Max show theme.
Yeah, let's do it.
We got.
I'm gonna have my own design system built by Modulz. Now I know what I'm building my website with. Nice, and I didn't even have to build it.
All right. So in the meantime, what's happening is this is being published. We generate a auth token from npm. By the way, if anyone is watching, don't do anything with this token. I'm going to delete it right after this is published.
Oh, now you've invited everybody. Woo! I hope nobody does anything
So
bad. Okay, now delete that
Nah,
token. First thing you do is delete that token because now everybody's seen it.
I'm going to publish first.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going
right.
to publish
You have to
first.
publish
And I'm
first.
going to do a minor release of Max Show. So now we're going to publish this to this Max Show package under my npm scope.
So if I were to work with a design team and I'm also setting up the Sketch integration, I still have to only publish a new version once, and it'll propagate to Sketch and npm. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So if you do the Sketch integration, whenever you do a new release, Sketch users that have this library connected with a system, they will get the new version automatically whenever there's a new release.
Sweet.
So the releases are if you release once and you've got npm and Sketch integrated, it will update both.
That's awesome.
There you go. So just gonna delete this. Okay, so we can't do any more releases, but we've done one release.
That's
and what
good
happens
enough
here
for me.
is
I don't need another release. I've got my design system now. Oh, this is exciting.
That's it. So you get a style guide. That's what one of the things we promised that you'd get. So this is your auto-generated style guide. Currently, this is following a template, and things are very much hard-coded in terms of the documentation. But we are working on a style guide section that you can essentially. It's basically a CMS for your style guide. You can change the content. If you want to tell people how to use a certain component, you can. You can create demos and examples of variants and stuff like that. So that's something that Vlad is working on. And
Nice.
I had that peek, and it just looks absolutely amazing. I can't wait to show that because that's going to be a game changer. But anyway, here's your style guide. I'm going to zoom in because I think someone said that it was a bit too small. So you can install it by doing a yarn-add P Duarte Max Show. You get your Max Show provider. I'm sure you know very well what that does. And then when you go to your button, which is the one that we worked on, you can see here we've got the blue, green, red, yellow buttons, and we've got the large. So these are your variants that get automatically documented for you. When you hover, you get the dark gray. When you click, you get the box shadow. The style guide is interactive, so if you want to say variant blue, you can. You get the blue one, and when you click, you get the blue box shadow. And if you want to change the size, this is where the compound styles come in. You can go large, and then you get your large blue button.
Nice.
If you remove this, you just get your large base button. What else did we do? I think we did the select a little bit, didn't we? So here's the select with your options.
Sweet.
And so this is how a style guide, and there you go, this is the isNative prop that gets documented, but there's a lot more props that need to be documented still. As I said, a lot of the style guide work is in progress.
Nice.
So that's cool. So it got style guide, which we should now be able to use this, right? So if we create a new code sandbox, we do it with TypeScript.
Oh, no.
The generated library is written in TypeScript. Primitives is written in TypeScript.
Way.
So you get autocomplete on all your variants and
what?
Stuff like that. Yeah. So max show is here, 0, 1, 0. Let's add that in. What else do we have to do? We have to take max show provider. So we're going to take that from the style guide.
You gotta have the provider.
I'm going to start doing it because sometimes code sandbox can take a little bit of time to. And we'll start just by putting a normal H1 there, just to make sure we're getting our basic stuff in. There we go.
So does the component library include some kind of global CSS reset? So if I now render an H1, will it be in the style of my design system, or will it just have the default browser styles?
Great question. Love this type of questions. No, it doesn't. There's no such thing as global resets when you add a provider. This is something that you have to do because we are focusing on the components and you focus on the layout. If you want to remove the margin from your body, then that's your job to do so. If you want your body to have lots of margin or a border, then you can also do that. So we don't do global resets, but we do resets on each component. So when you get a button, that button will have its own resets and only the resets that it needs.
Makes sense. Makes a ton of sense.
So right now we've got your max provider. We can now start taking a few components. So we can use everything that's in the style guide.
Damn.
Everything that's here is available for us to use. So let's start with the box. The box is something that doesn't exist in Modulz because it's not something that you can style. It's just a layout component. So we don't even show it, right? We don't even show it. But it does exist. You can take your box. And
also, just to clarify, it does show in the style guide in the generated one. It just doesn't show in the Modulz editor for the components where you style the components.
That's correct. That's correct. So in the style guide, you get it because the style guide is for everyone.
Of course, yeah.
But in Modulz, we don't show it because it's mainly for designers, and there's really nothing that you can do at a design level.
You can't change it anyway.
So we take a box, we take a text, and we take a button. Right?
Somebody complained about the font size again. Can you just increase the font size in the code sandbox?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll finish typing this and I'll increase it.
Nice, much better.
Better? All right. So we got a text. Let's just say hello from Max. Show. Boom. We can render this as, let's say this is our H1. We can then put another piece of text. We can write some copy. And we can finally render a button. All right. So what you see straight away is things might not look how you expect. Depends on what you expect. But you do get all of the low-level components that were done in Modulz. So your button looks like your button. From this moment on, we are working on layout. We're no longer working on how a component should look. We're now given a page, say it's a checkout flow, say it's a registration page, whatever it may be. The job of the developers is to now make sure they put the right content, make sure they have the right layout, make sure their app is accessible by providing the right layout related rows, and make sure that it's secure, whatever they need to do. But they shouldn't really have to write CSS. If you want to start creating some spaces and do things around, now we start entering this realm of styled system, theme UI, chakra UI. This is all going to be very familiar for people who are used to those libraries. So say first thing we want to do is we just want to add a background to a box. We can use the SX prop and we can say gray 200.
Nice.
Now we get that 200 gray. Then you want to add maybe some border radius. So say we do border radius 2. Get a little bit of border radius. You can add padding of 5. 5 is now the 5th step in your space scale. Then you've got your text, and your text has a few variants. And that's because when you create a new style design system with modules, these are predefined. So you've got 10 size variants that you can use. You got 2 weights, and you got a Boolean truncate prop that's also predefined for you. So say we want to make this text look a little bit bigger. We don't really know how many pixels we want, but it doesn't matter because all we need to do is pick a step from the scale. And if it's too small, say we pick 4, and you want it to be bigger, you can change it to 5.
You might have to make it a number.
Okay, let me check. Yeah. Let's see.
Oh.
No, I think I was hoping, I was expecting that something would go wrong at some point. But we can look at the types. No, sorry. The variants only go from
1 to 4.
The variants only go from 1 to 4. So if we look, let me just compare here our text components. Yeah, so we only have 1 to 4. So this is a problem in the style guide. Actually. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the Radix style guide. Let me close Radix out of the way. And let me go to the text of Max Show. So Max Show, we just get 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. It was just a little scared. Everyone is okay. So here we can go. We should be able to get autocomplete here. It's something I was working on yesterday. I was testing this out, but now it's not showing, but that's okay. We'll look at that later.
It exists.
So we got 3.
It works.
2,
we'll just say it works.
We say it works. Thank you. Then you can.
I think
actually, we don't have all this.
I think
yeah. No, we don't have any of this in yours. Sorry.
Because
your design system doesn't support it.
Yeah, right. We didn't add it in the edits, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, all that was from Radix. But then that's why SX prop exists, to be used with caution. We don't recommend that people go crazy using SX props because then they're kind of breaking the system. But there are lots of reasons why you would want to use SX props. For example, say you wanted to do something that was position absolute, you'd have to do it through SX prop. Because the moment you do top, say you do top 4, it again uses your space scale. So the SX prop has many benefits because it's theme aware. So that's great. We can add some spacing at the bottom.
No, margins. You're bringing margins onto my show? I'm ending this right here. This is over.
I can change it to padding.
No, I'm just kidding.
And then we can do the same here. And this button is now the same color as the background. So what we can do is we can change the variant. And did we have one called blue?
Blue, yeah. I think we worked on the blue one.
Yeah, it was blue. There we go. And maybe a little bit more. That's it. So that's how you go about consuming a design system exported by Modulz. In terms of syntax, is not much difference from start system theme UI. The
Yeah.
main difference is the only style props or system props that we support as first-class citizens are margins and paddings. You can't add anything else. You can't do background. You can't do I don't know, flex wrap. You can't do any other props. Anything else goes through the SX.
Yeah.
So that's because we realize that very often you use paddings and margins when you're building layouts, and the rest we don't really want to encourage. So we kind of say, here's an SX prop, and then from that prop you have access to every CSS property that you need.
Nice. I like that a lot.
And that's basically it. This is how you consume it. And of course, this is a relatively simple example, but one thing I was hoping to show you here is I've just redid my whole website. This is my personal website, and this is the first production product using a design system exported from Modulz.
Nice.
So I created a design system for myself, and this whole website uses that design system. There's some articles that explain how it's done. There's a new article talking about how I build Wallop. Wallop system is the name of my design system. How I build that with Modulz. So if anyone is interested, go and check out this article. It goes quite into a lot of details on how Modulz works, how you publish, how you change variants, and a bunch of stuff.
Nice.
And last but not least, if you go on my GitHub, the project there is just pet.ro, my name, and this is the next app. And as you can see here in package.json, it uses my Wallop system, and the whole website uses this design system. So if anyone is curious to know more about the usage, you can check out that repo, and hopefully we can get some feedback as well, see what people think.
Well,
but I think this kind of wraps up
the
demo.
Yeah, now I've got to go and start that actually. Hold on. I'm going in. I'm opening GitHub right now. You can't see this, but everybody on the stream can. And I've started the repo. Sweet repo. I would totally check this out if you're into. I'm actually going to post this link in the chat just to make sure that everybody sees
nice.
it. If you're into this and if you want to see what it looks like to use a Modulz generated design system, check out this repo. That's probably the best way to get a feel for it. I think that's great. So in terms of usage, like you said, this is the first production website built with it. How soon are you going to open this up? When can we start using it? This looks so great. I want to start using it right now.
Yeah, we're very, very, very close. You know, it's literally probably a few weeks from now that we can let people start using the product, take it for a run. We already have few private beta members that have been using the product. They were a little bit more exclusive to our Kickstarter backers and some private beta testers. But we're not far, man. We're very close. The product is, as you saw, the product is at a state now that a lot can be done. Obviously, there's a lot of improvements in the pipeline. There are a lot of new features that are coming. But it's already usable and it's already powerful enough that you can build a full kind of website with it, including like the inline codes and some things are not from Modulz, like this is Prism for highlighting. But everything's there. This is a type of font.
Yeah, of course.
This is my link. Actually, what I'm gonna show you that might be interesting is I can show you my design system. This is my design system in Modulz, and this has a lot more. The scale is different, although it looks similar, but the scale is different. The colors are different. And if you look at the badge, I've got a few different badges, different colors, different sizes. If you look at my, say my text, I've got quite a few different sizes of text. with each size, I choose the line height that I want to show as well. I choose the font. The font weight happens in a different variant actually, so I can combine them. So these are the 3 font weights. I've got a tooltip, which is white because my website works on dark theme. So one of the things that we're working on is being able to change the background color of your canvas.
Right.
So in case you're working on a dark theme and everything you do is white, like your text, it also works. But you know, like everything is here basically. I've got my buttons; they're quite simple. My colors. So all of these, my whole design system is done with Modulz, Wallop system, and there's a style guide for it.
Of course.
It has something called Wallop Provider, which I really like how it's called. And then yeah, man. And another cool thing to show you while we're here actually is that we also keep track of every time you do a new release.
Oh, sick.
There is a version of that design system in case someone is using a different version of the library.
That is sick. Is all this style guide infrastructure completely custom, or are you using one of the common style guide tools under the hood?
No, it's using Next.js under the hood, but in terms of building it, it's all custom.
Nice. I see. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Sid said in the chat, "This is how I'll end up unemployed, but I ain't even mad."
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you combine this with what the folks down in Melbourne, the Seek folks have been working on with Playroom, where you can essentially where you basically get a live preview of your entire design system and can build up any page really visually with code. This is looking pretty sweet.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
Yeah, you nailed it. You got it. Yeah, we had a chat with Mark about integrating Playroom. It's something that it's also in our pipelines. We have some ideas. There are new features coming out. For example, right now, all you can really do is style the independent components, right? So if you have a radio, you can style the radio. You know, if you go to the checked state, you can start styling the checked state and all that. But we want to work on potentially having a composer area where you can actually take all of your components and you can build stuff like this.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that is similar. That would be a bit similar to what Blocks UI are doing. Maybe it's similar to Playroom, so the composer could work from a code first or from a UI first. You know, all of these things with prototypes as already is just a matter of priorities at the moment on what we should do first.
Startup. It's always a matter of priorities.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, do you export your own Wallop design system into Sketch?
I haven't actually, but we can try. The Sketch export is not something that I've fully tested yet because this is quite complex. Abdu has been working on this a lot. The guy is a genius. So let's give it a try, man. Let's download it and see what happens. Okay, go for it. Is this it? Oh no, this is a different one. That's a different one. Max Show. There you go. Let's install Max Show. Failed.
What
failed to download update. Let's try again because maybe I opened this at the wrong time. But,
no worries.
But also,
I haven't
done the.
Yeah. We get what it should be like.
Yeah, it's not something I've tested. This was the Max one, right? Let's try it.
Let's try your one. I wonder if that works.
Yeah, let's try mine. Yeah, let's try. See what happens there. Something happening. I think something's happening. No, failed to download. Yeah, so unfortunately that's not what it could be because I need to integrate with Sketch. I need to enable integration. I haven't actually tested this part. This part is a whole different area of the product that I'm not too familiar with. Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, man. So I think this is basically concludes the demo. We have created the design system. We have updated our tokens. We have created variants on our components. We have styled them. We have styled the parts and the states. We have a style guide generated for us. We have a package on NPM, and we consume that package in Code Sandbox.
That is sweet. Nice.
Mhm.
I think this is a great place to end it. It's been an hour. This was a great demo. I love what you're doing. I love what you're working on. Keep going. I can't wait until everybody's actually able to use it. Is there like a release date you can maybe share, or like a timeline, a rough timeline maybe? Is it like 2 years out? Is it half a year out? Is it 2 weeks out? Like how long until I can get my hands on this?
I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure.
Fair enough.
If Colin is on the chat, Colin can leave a little message there and let us know. But it's definitely not 2 years away. It's we're talking like short term here. It's going to be soon.
Nice. That's awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And people in the chat were really excited. This was the most active the chat has ever been. Everybody freaked out. You're doing great work over there. I love it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this demo. This was awesome. I hope people enjoyed it. If people want to find out more about you or about Modulz, where should they go? What should they do?
They can check out my Twitter. I tweet a lot about Modulz. You've already tweeted my handle, so I'm always showing demos and little things that we're working on. They want to find out more about Modulz. You can go on modulz.app. The whole website of Modulz is being redone. So we're going to have loads of learning material, helping people onboard and learn about the product. This is one of the things I'm working on the side. I'm working on this in public. So if anyone is curious to see how it is, there is a repo called Modulz-website under the Modulz GitHub. I can send that to you after. And this I'm working this in open source and in public. All the articles are kind of draft, but you can already get a really good look at the product as is. And then apart from that, yeah, there's shout out to everyone on the team who's doing an amazing job. We've got Colin, Steven running the show. We got Abdul, Vlad, Nika, Paul, Benoit, Alana, all working on different features, different areas of the product. We've got Chance joining us in a week or two from ReachUI, so really excited about that. We've got Jenna, which is an awesome developer that I have worked with in the past, and Benoit has worked with her in the past also, joining in a couple of weeks as well. And I think we are still hiring for certain roles, but I'll let Colin share an update on that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming in. I'm going to turn off the stream. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Cheers, mate.
Find us on Twitter. All right.